Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Talk NFT, where we talk all things Web3. Super excited here today to have on the founders of SuperMojo. We have Amir Sarhangi and Craig DeWitt here. And there's so much to talk about your background. So I'm just going to hand it over to you and let you do just a brief background about yourself and kind of what inspired you to get into NFT specifically, because you guys have vast experience, in the crypto world.
Yes, Joe, great to be on the show. I'll kick it off. This is my third startup. Before coming to SuperMojo and starting it, I was at Ripple, that's where I met Craig. Was there for about 4 years, and we did a lot of great stuff. I'll let Craig talk more about that. And prior to Ripple, I was at Google, where my last company was acquired by them. That became the default messaging on all Android phones. So that was a ton of fun. That's now over 1 billion users, active users. So that kind of led me to do something totally new and jumped into in the world of crypto. And then after spending about 4 years at Ripple and doing quite a bit in the kind of the enterprise space, Craig and I started playing around with NFTs. And at first, it was one of those things where you kind of wonder how much of it was real. And once we understood the power of them, you couldn't stop kind of talking about it. So, and one of the things we saw early on was that very similar to crypto, at first, when you start working, and touching NFTs, you realize how complex it is and how difficult it is for a non-user to even be able to, buy one or hold one and then be able to even interact with it. And that's kind of when the light kind of went on for us to say, look, we got to help bring more infrastructure in this space and make it much, much simpler for users to be able to adopt. And in a very similar way that today, you can go and buy Bitcoin or ETH without really having much knowledge about crypto. So that's how I got started. I'll let Craig give his background.
Yeah, also super excited to be on the show. So I graduated Berkeley in 2010ish and went to work at Bloomberg. This is right kind of at the tail end of the financial crisis. And so I went to Bloomberg because I like the idea of transparency and building tools that allow people to understand what's going on in the financial space. And it was there that I found Bitcoin, or the early pieces of Bitcoin, and just immediately fell in love with this concept of distributed monetary value that's not controlled by humans, right? It's like it's trustable, it's verifiable with math. So I went to Stanford, get an MBA after that, and when I was there, I met the founder of Ripple. This was like 2014, who was actually trying to apply a concept of digital assets to actual real world utility. In their case, mostly cross-border payments. And so I was one of the first PMs there, really built up the payments business there, turned that into what it is today, a multi-billion-dollar business, billions and billions in terms of volume. Met Amir there and started playing around with NFTs, probably like 2019-ish. Originally, I thought they were kind of stupid. I thought they were JPEGs, right? And that's not what blockchain's for. Blockchain's for payments and digital money and digital cash. And all of a sudden, I kind of realized that the thing wasn't the thing. It's not about the JPEG. It's about a testable ownership on chain that can unlock utility either digitally or in the real world. And that light went off with a couple collections that I was kind of playing around with earlier. And it's, oh man, I'm just having flashbacks to 2014 when I kind of first fell in love with crypto. And I think all of that same kind of mechanisms are there for this explosion of utility in NFTs. So yeah, that's why I got with Amir and started SuperMojo.
That's awesome. You guys definitely must have seen something to leave, the cryptocurrency world, as you mentioned, with vast experience and also conducting billions of dollars in sale with your previous company. So there must be something over here. So I'm pretty glad I chose the right space also. Did a little bit different than you guys. I worked in the domain name industry for about 11 years in Silicon Valley, handling Fortune 500 companies and their $1 million domain name portfolio. So security was top of mind for myself. But to your point, Craig, the joy I felt from NFTs, for myself, I got in through NBA Top Shop. I know we were talking about basketball a little bit earlier. And it really connected me with the fan base locally. I talked to friends I haven't spoken to in 10 years. I got to meet athletes I would have never met. I met Kevon Looney at a NBA Top Shop NFT event. I was swinging golf with J.R. Smith, who's the enemy, of course. But, it was just a very joyful time. And it sounded like a long time ago, but it was 2021, 2022 when, NFTs was, on everyone's headlines. If you didn't have NFTs, you were not doing the right thing by your company. And flip to page 2023, you can't even use the word NFTs today. It has to be, digital assets, Web3. We have to change the lingo a little bit. But I found the user experience very easy. Maybe that's why I kind of slipped into it, more so than other people through NBA Top Shop. And you guys are looking to bring that same usability and UX to the average person, because besides NBA Top Shop, it's like a nightmare. It's collecting NFTs is, and I saw a tweet that you guys put out that you said the next million NFT holders may not ever own crypto. And I was like, I can't wait for that to happen. And that's something that I think NBA Top Shop did really well. They just swiped a credit card. So tell us about what you're creating here in SuperMojo. I know there's a couple moving parts there, but I'm sure you can break it down easier for us.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, NBA Top Shots was an inspiration in terms of how easy that experience looks like, because they can bring all the pieces together, both for the creator and the consumer. Similarly, with us, we wanted that to be enabled for everybody. One of the things early on, and the reason we got so excited about this space, was because really, when you look at NFTs, there's so many different categories that they get applied to, whether it's music, sports, and the list just keeps going. Authenticity of luxury goods, real estate. And for that to be a reality, it has to be very simple, but also it needs to be able to go to anyone's experience. Meaning, if I have a storefront or if I have essentially a website, I should be able to bring that easy experience into my own brand. Especially the bigger brands really want to own that experience. So that's what we're doing at SuperMojo, is we're making it extremely simple by providing an easy on-ramp. And by that, we mean being able to use your credit card to purchase the NFT. Once you've purchased that NFT, we automatically create a wallet experience for you. So as a user, you don't have to worry about understanding how to even work with MetaMask or essentially a non-custodial wallet where you own the secret keys. Here, it's just like entering any other, like your bank account, where you just use your username and password to enter. And so in a very similar way, we automatically create that experience for you. We put the NFT in the wallet and allow you to be able to interact with it very easily. So that experience can be delivered to any user, and any creator can take this experience and use our SDK essentially to enable it within their website. So as a creator, one of the things that's important here is that you don't actually have to understand even how to deal with cryptocurrency, because a lot of times with a lot of products, creators have to know how to deal with ETH or how to have an ETH wallet to be able to accept payments. With us, really, we're taking fiat currency from the user using a credit card, and we're delivering fiat or ETH or stablecoin to a creator or a brand, making it extremely simple for them.
I see. So in the background, you guys do all the hard, heavy lifting. Is there a particular chain that you guys are on? I know that's a pretty general question that a lot of artists or creators ask.
Yeah. So like the chains that we support, ETH and now Polygon are two big chains that we support. The other one, just based on our background coming from Ripple, is we're one of the, let's say, the large players on the XRPL chain, which is just kind of getting off the ground in terms of NFT support.
Yeah, I saw that they had a huge fund for NFTs at NFT San Francisco. So definitely, I've seen so many chains that I haven't ever heard of with a lot of key collaboration. So that's something really key, is just finding, the right partnerships. And I know you guys have had a recent launch. I think it was recent. Can you tell us about that? Hopefully I'm pronouncing this right. Justin Bua, he has a metaverse, an entire metaverse with you guys. Can you tell us about that and kind of like the biggest takeaways there?
Yeah, so Justin Bua is an awesome artist. And, when you're talking about kind of your experience of getting to meet these creators that you otherwise wouldn't meet, that's been our case in the NFT space. So we've met a lot of really cool people. Justin is, near the top in terms of those great interactions. He is really big within the hip hop community of bringing a really style of classical art to these hip hop scenes. And so if you haven't heard of his name before, chances are that, especially in the Bay Area, you've seen his art. images of the DJ, the MC, the boombox, like very cultural art. And what he has done is he's bringing those characters to life via NFTs. The vision there is beyond just putting kind of art on the blockchain, which is cool, and I think he'd be successful at. He's really building the opportunity of using those assets to get access to a wider world of the Buaverse. And so his initial launch with us allowed card purchases of these assets without a wallet required, which is key because he knows his user base and his customer base very, very well. The overlap with crypto folks, close to zero, right? And so the ability of actually having easy card, easy wallet, and importantly, safe, because he knows like if somebody connected their wallet, like they'd probably get wiped out, which is another, terrible like aspect we got to fix in this space that I have, direct experiences with, is a key piece of our solution.
I see. And as an artist, we know it's a hot topic today with marketplaces. And I know that you guys are probably a proponent for helping creators maybe secure the royalties. Can you give us your thoughts about that? Because it's a hot topic.
Yeah, it is a hot topic. And I think what you're seeing right now in these aggregate marketplaces, those kind of eventually go to zero. I don't really see a way around it because really the customer there is the demand side taker volume that takes place. The solution that I see there, because creator royalties are critical if you're going to create an actual use case here, bespoke marketplaces is where I see that market going, to where they can actually control what the royalties are. I think of the world today as kind of like what the early days of the internet is. I think Blur and Coinbase, Blur and OpenSea are awesome businesses, but it's like early days of eBay. The entire digital world is not going to trade on those, are not going to trade on those marketplaces. Eventually, people are going to own their own experiences. And I can see somebody like Justin really easily having their own marketplace. And if you want to trade his content, that's where you go.
And a good example of that actually just announced is Roblox. Roblox now allows creators to set their royalties up to 10%. And as that gets traded within the Roblox ecosystem, they'll continue to make that 10%. So I think that's interesting, even though it's not your hardcore NFT crypto ecosystem, but that is the type of ecosystem that starts setting the precedence for exactly what Craig is talking about, which is these vertical marketplaces that will essentially be able to demand royalties at a certain price point. So I think that's going to continue to be important, and then that will, I think, force the larger marketplaces to be able to adhere so they can compete, because they're going to see a lot of kind of specific specialized NFTs moving away from their marketplaces.
Understood. Yeah. My opinion is always for royalties, because I'm not a creator, but I think everyone has turned on their creative brain through the art renaissance of NFTs that kind of pushed it forward. And I'm thinking now, like, what can I produce out there? Hopefully one day this podcast will have its own ecosystem, metaverse, and tokenomics. So I, for one, support royalties, also because I want to support the artists as well. And I'm all for that. And I'm interested on your thoughts about just kind of the immutability of the data files, because recently on talks of royalties, I'm not sure if you heard of Goblin Town. This is a project that was free to mint, and they changed all the the images of the collection to a big middle finger, and the community was not happy about this at all. They meant it as a joke, but it just pointed to the notion of, hey, how immutable is this? And a lot of bullish Bitcoin NFT, maximalists came out and said, this is why Bitcoin NFTs should be the place to be. What's your thoughts on that? Is Bitcoin's going to be the next big thing? Like, what's your thoughts on, not saying Justin's going to do it, but let's say he changes the images because it could be IPFS and pointed somewhere else.
Yeah. So there's various mechanisms. I think there's a lot of various mechanisms to do NFTs right. You can go as far as not even hosting on IPFS. Like you see a lot of stuff that's actually hosted on like AWS. You know what I mean? So there's various levels. There's various levels to that, but it does kind of raise a good question of the immutability of NFTs. There's some folks who have the right, I'd say, principles and mechanics in place to protect that. and others that are, just straight up kind of what's called degen trading models, where I don't think people care really, just because the purpose was really, in many cases, I think just to drive value and volume, and have the greater fool come in and buy the NFT before the bottom falls out. But that said, on Bitcoin, I don't know how well that community overall is going to accept NFTs. I was really excited by ordinals because, at least in the last 4 or 5 years, that was probably the biggest innovation that I've seen on that chain completely, right? And so I'm excited about that. Like how much they actually get the BTC maxis to buy into that, I'm not so sure, and that's why I have I think more faith. I'm not bearish on BTC NFTs, but more faith in some of these upstart chains that are growing communities from the ground up, who are really designed to understand which NFTs make sense and which don't.
Yeah, I think I'm diving deeper than the average layperson would even care about, or maybe they don't know, right? One day it happens to them, but it is an issue that someone should be aware of, and I don't think many are.
Completely, and I think a lot of that becomes self-policing, and hopefully you get a lot less of those kind of mechanisms minted with a lot of eyeballs on them, especially as we get out of kind of the froth. Because it wasn't, I mean, it's funny, we're having the chat today. I look back at prices a year ago. This is pretty close, I want to say, to like the pico top of the NFT market, April of last year. And it seemed like back then, a PFP minted hastily, you could actually raise quite a lot of ETH and see a lot of trading from that. I think those days are over, and I think that's actually a healthy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking more from my previous experience in the domain world, where disgruntled employees would change the where the domain's pointed, and you have different images now. So now I'm thinking a disgruntled employee might change the entire collection and put an image there that shouldn't be there. So
that's right. And if you use the wrong mechanisms, that is 100% possible.
Awesome. I mean, well, not awesome, but I think brilliant minds like yourselves are looking to solve that problem. So I'm gonna leave it up to the experts here. So, which brings me to the next question: How do we onboard, or how do you see the next wave of Web3 users coming in? Like Web2's been around for decades now, and it just came in waves. And someone mentioned gaming as kind of the next big proponent, or like the theme of 2023. What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I mean, the thing we're really excited about is, just in the last 6 months, hundreds of brands have entered this space. And what's been interesting is not just, for most of the brands we're talking to and creators we're talking to, including even Justin, it's about actually, part of it is about reconnecting to the new generation. So Gen A, Gen Z, most of these generations, I have 2 kids, 9 and 11, they've grown up with everything digital, and COVID really even changed that whole model to be even, much faster adoption of digital. So brands are always very paranoid, and also creators and musicians are always paranoid about losing their base, losing their, being able to attract new fans. And so what we are pretty excited about is what's happening in the space, and brands are starting to really experiment, and they're doing collaborations, not only as their own brand, but they're working with different, musicians and artists to be able to deliver a totally new experience to their users. And what's interesting here is that, previously brands could only really connect through email and or advertise through, let's say, Google or Instagram to be able to reach new fans. Now you have a way where, it's totally different. You're really cutting the middle people and going directly and being able to connect in ways that you couldn't connect before. Being able to deliver experiences, whether it's a token gated experience where users can leverage the NFT to do something totally new, or, for example, having, physical goods delivered to them because they own a particular NFT. And I was actually watching one of your episodes, the one with the Warriors, where obviously those fans, the fans from Top Shots were there, getting all kinds of goodies. So, those kinds of real experiences, those VIP experiences before were not really accessible to the average person. Now it's much different, because now everybody knows the rules of the game, because owning that NFT really allows you to be on the same kind of level as anyone else that owns it. Whereas before, you kind of don't know how to access those types of capabilities. So I think that's what's pretty exciting for us, is as we're starting to see brands experiment, you're starting to see certain use cases do really well. Certain use cases may not do as well, but in that learning process, I think other brands are getting more interested and are starting getting into and wanting to experiment. So that's pretty exciting. Also, the fact that with NFTs, one of the things that brings is who your early adopters are. As an artist, who was the first 100 people that bought your painting or downloaded your music. That's extremely powerful, right? Because you start really understanding who the real fans are versus people, potentially who are in and out, right? So that also, I think, is something that both brands and creators have never really had access to. Like, who's gone to all the Warrior games, and actually there's proof of attendance that they've been there, or who has bought every album that I've produced. And I think those are what really gets us excited about what's about to come.
Definitely. That's something that will change a lot of, ways the companies market in the future, or provide, benefits, like you said. And I'm all for that. As a consumer of a lot of things, I spend a lot of money on a lot of things, and to be rewarded, like you said, for the NBA Top Shot Warriors, that was just kind of like, the cream on top, which really locks me in deeper with that particular, platform itself, and I patronize it frequently. And I'm probably like a good experiment in use case, because I'm not a coffee drinker, but due to the Starbucks NFT experience, I found myself drinking more coffee. They provided unlimited coffee for 30 days, which is amazing. So yeah, there's a lot of brands coming in that I haven't seen last year. So I'm super excited about that. Hope you guys are. And one thing that I've heard, actually do an interview that I just did recently, is that in the future, with the blockchain data input, like you mentioned, we're going to have just new data sets around this where we didn't have before, for companies to utilize. And that's what they want anyways, right? They just want to brainwash people forever anyways to utilize their product or services. So they definitely, I think most companies that have a Web3 division, or else they're just going to be really, really far behind. And I saw a tweet that you guys talked about travel, about Marriott, about the Hyatt. And I patronize all of those, actually. I have each one of their credit cards. and I'm using them anyways. But I've been with a lot of these a long time, to your point, right? And if they could, show some benefits, then more to Marriott, I'll put that on my marketing and whatnot. So that's super, super exciting. So with all your experience with seeing all these brands come in, and maybe some companies that haven't come in yet, what's the biggest, problem you would like NFTs to solve, or see NFT solving? And I'll go first. Ticketing and queuing. I was just at the Warriors game. If they have RFID chips, and I'm not sure if you guys have shopped at Uniqlo ever, you could just put all your clothes. You don't need to even talk to a cash register. They scan everything within that box in Uniqlo, and you pay and you just walk out. You don't even need to, do a barcode. So if they could do that, I'm sure they could just kind of scan us and go through queues, because queues for airplanes, concerts is just ridiculous, and whatnot. So, but what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, so I think there's two sides to the market, at least the way that I see them. Solving problems for direct users, which is kind of the user-based experience you're talking about. And the other side of that is actually solving problems for the brands themselves. And a big problem, just kind of a meta idea across a bunch of different use cases, a big problem that a lot of these brands have is that they're so far away from their customers that they don't actually know who the customers are. A great example of that is like you have Coca-Cola, which a lot of money goes into that Coca-Cola advertising on a global business. But when you think about the number of intermediaries that a Coca-Cola product, like a bottle of Coke, has to go through before it touches the end consumer, Coke doesn't know who their customers are, right? From the bottlers to the distribution aspects, to the wholesalers, to the retailers, like it's incredibly difficult for them to actually know who those consumers are. Web3 solves that problem for those brands by allowing a direct interaction between the brand parent co and the user themselves. So like you think about these ideas of users being able to scan barcodes on products that they have, in the base sense, scan barcodes on products to prove that they've actually enjoyed that product. Now the brand has direct access to their most intense evangelists to be able to reward specific behaviors. And that is so cool from a brand perspective, because all of a sudden you don't have to pay Google $500 billion a year to hopefully get your cost per click, within dollars, really. Now you can actually communicate and direct to folks who are buying your assets directly for new products or experiences. So that is actually a huge problem that is solved by these mega internet companies like Facebook and Google today, which is a very wide net. And that is a problem that I think is overlooked a lot of times because we think a lot about the retail-based experiences. But that's the kind of stuff that gets me excited, because that's a $1 trillion problem, and one that I think can be solved by NFT tech.
From a user perspective, what I get excited about is, I collect a lot of points. So I have United points because I've traveled a lot, and I also, Marriott and others. I think one of the things that as a consumer is missing today is just transparency around the value of those points, right? Right now, like for example, prices of tickets have gone up tremendously. I don't know if you've tried to buy tickets like for the summer. It's just crazy how expensive it is, right? So if I have a bunch of points and I want to be able to easily offer that to somebody else today, that's not really that conducive. In fact, they prevent you from doing that, right? They really want Joe to only use those points. So it's about transparency. It's about being able to move that value easily across my loyalty programs. And then when there is something cool to do, I want to be able to kind of leverage the fact that I've been loyal to that brand. I want to be able to leverage that easily. And, I think with Web3, really that opens up the spectrum for how I get rewarded as a loyal customer of United or Marriott in a much different way than today. So that's really, I think, what I'm really excited about is what it does to the loyalty business and all the experiences that become much easier to be able to deliver to the real fans.
That's very interesting, and hopefully the DeFi people listening don't take that the wrong way and start implementing craziness, because I have a lot of points too, and I used it for my honeymoon recently, and I could just imagine like what would happen if the DeFi people came in. I'm not necessarily a bad thing, but you're allowed to stake your Marriott points. You're allowed to gain massive APR on it. With a lot of looping and whatnot. So
that's cool. Staking United points. I love that.
Amazing, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so those thoughts came in my head because I've been in the cryptocurrency space. Also, I did some degenerate moves with some staking mechanisms. But that'd be very fascinating to see how people will gamify loyalty points. Because, like you said, it's an asset. It truly is. I have people in Web2 that has actually sold the services that you're mentioning in the Bay. So it's kind of a white glove, concierge service, but they'll book it for you, right? So they have, but it would be way easier with blockchain. It would be way easier, and then you could input some degenerate DeFi protocols in there. To your point, Craig, the brands that don't even know, kind of how to reward your users and whatnot, or even competition, know more targeted data. And I've seen this in the NFT space because I've tried to collect everything, which no one should try to do, is that it's very easy to tell who the top holders are through the blockchain. Like, hey, here's the top 100 orders of Bored Ape Yacht Club. And, they would just get airdropped free things all the time. So like, that's why people love Bored Ape Yacht Club, because they just get free stuff all the time. And it's so easy to see it on a blockchain. And to your point, they could just bypass Google, and if you're a top holder of XYZ or Ronaldo or LeBron James, they can very easily see that on a blockchain and kind of try to pull you, if you're Coca-Cola, try to pull you to Pepsi, because we know who the top Coca-Cola drinker is or the purchaser of that. So we can see who the most loyal Coca-Cola people, and kind of like how, I forgot the guy's name, but he went from T-Mobile to Sprint. He was like the
can you hear me guy now? Can you hear me now, guy?
Right,
Yeah.
Right. Kind of pulled, but in a much more, accurate way, I would say, direct to the consumers and, kind of providing them services. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation. What's next for SuperMojo? What's like the next iteration? What are you guys working on? Are you guys going to launch your own NFT project?
So we probably won't launch our own project, but where I really see us right now is the amount of conversations and deals that are coming down the pike for NFTs that have real utility gets me very excited. And I'm feeling these kind of these vibes like I've seen this movie before. And it feels very much kind of like 2018 in the crypto space when you had that crazy, I forget what Bitcoin probably went up to like 10,000, right? Like ridiculous in 2017. Market kind of came down, flushed out a lot of the BS. But then people could kind of understand the magic a little bit better and the building was happening. That's happening right now in the NFT space. We flushed out a lot of kind of the overhead and stuff. And now it's about actually creating real use cases that provide utility. And that's where our focus is completely. And so what you'll see here is you'll see accessible NFTs that are powered by SuperMojo that allow everyday folks to acquire them with credit cards, to hold them, and then within that holding experience, within that custody experience, be able to unlock the utility without any concerns of getting the NFT swiped from connecting wallets or anything like that. And so there's a number of projects going on there, and I'm really excited to kind of help bring this to the masses as people interact with these things that they don't even have to know are NFTs.
And I think that's key, Joe. I think as soon as you have to explain what an NFT is or what crypto is, like you've lost the consumer,
right?
Because 95% of people interacting with large brands have no wallet or have never bought Bitcoin, so or ETH for that matter. So that becomes a critical success factor here for the whole industry is really embedding all the benefits of Web3 within the experience and really delivering a fun, engaging experience versus having for the user to worry about how do I, download a wallet and can I really trust this source that I'm working with? So, and that's what everyone that we're working with right now, also wants this experience to be part of their brand. So I think we're going to see more and more fragmentation when it comes to marketplaces. We're going to see more and more fragmentation when it comes to wallets, because nobody, really wants, Marriott, for example, is not going to want to sell their NFTs next to Hilton, right? On a marketplace. They're going to want you to come to Marriott.com and they're going to want to sell you that, VIP champagne experience directly versus having to go through third parties. So I think that becomes a big trend of the future, very similar way, as Craig was saying, eBay, at first you went to eBay for everything. Now you actually go to the website of the luxury brand or Porsche or, the Warriors for that matter. So that's what we're excited about. And the fact that also fans are going to start being able to experience totally new things that they've never had access to. Only certain people have access to a VIP package to go backstage to meet a musician, whereas now, it's a level playing field. You kind of know exactly what you need to do as a fan to be able to access it. So, we're pretty excited about that and what's going to come here.
Yeah, that definitely does make sense. Coming from my previous experience in the domain name industry, it's kind of like the responsibility that no one wants in the department. It gets kicked from legal to marketing to IT. But to your point, with the immersion of Web3, I believe every company needs to have kind of that person or the marketplace, and it's just going to have to be that way. Just like it is in the domain name industry, where no one wants it, but it's a core critical piece of your business, because before it wasn't necessary, but now you have a business need for it, right? It's a new implementation of a business that you have to have, and I definitely see that happening, and you guys will probably be leading that wave. And I just thought of something that's interesting. So this is a lot of business in the past was B2B, B2C. I think I just created a new one, a B2C, which is business to creator, because the creator economy is pretty big right now, right? It's like our kids is probably going to be creators, and that's like the new career field. No one wants to go to, I know when you went to UC Berkeley, Craig, but people just want to become YouTubers and social media experts and creators nowadays. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100% true. Or like, TikTok influencers, I think, is probably the app du jour.
Right. Well, we're going to see how that is. And hopefully we can hear, all that when you guys come back on in the future, because there's going to be so much progress, a few months down the road. It's like dog years, right? So I'm super excited to see what you guys can develop and have you guys back on in the future.
Absolutely. We're excited to do that. And thanks for having us on, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. I'm going to put the links for everything down below. So whoever's listening, make sure you check out SuperMojo and all the fun things that they're working on, the artists and creators that they're working with. And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Go Warriors.
Yeah, go Warriors.